Russian soldiers on river islands in Kherson have almost no boats left. Russian soldiers near Kramatorsk are now under 9 kilometers away, and Russia's own military bloggers just told their audience there is no good option left. This is not one story, it's 4. Today's video covers a lot of ground, so here's the map before we start. First, the naval campaign that's turning the Sea of Azov into a trap. Then, a boat shortage that's quietly isolating Russian troops on the Dnipro islands. After that, 3 separate frontline movements near Kharkiv, near Kramatorsk, and near Pokrovsk that each look small on their own but add up to something larger. And we'll end with what Russia's own military analysts are now telling each other, which is far more pessimistic than what state television says. Welcome back. Let's start on the water. Ukraine's drone forces have spent months refining a tactic they first tested in the Black Sea and are now repeating in the Sea of Azov. Instead of chasing one spectacular sinking, they attack the ports themselves, cranes, substations, fuel tanks, and vessel traffic control, while simultaneously hunting the ships at sea. The first attacks in Azov waters go back to February. By early July, isolated strikes had grown into a full campaign stretching from Berdyansk and Mariupol all the way to Taganrog, Azov, Yeysk, Temryuk, and the Kerch Strait. After July 6th, the pace jumped sharply. Ukraine's general staff confirmed strikes on 10 tankers and 4 ferries in one operation, then on 13 and 28 vessels on the following 2 days. More than 70 tankers and dry cargo ships have now reportedly been hit. Why does this matter beyond the ships themselves? Tankers move fuel within Russia's internal waterway network. Ferries hold the physical link to Crimea together. Dry cargo vessels carry coal for power plants and grain for export. And tugboats matter more than people realize. A damaged tanker loses steering from its bridge and can drift in open water, but it cannot dock without being towed. Destroy the tugs, and even a disabled ship that survives becomes stranded at sea. Russian military bloggers themselves now describe this as a deliberate, long-planned campaign, not a series of coincidences. Now to the Dnipro. According to the Ukrainian partisan network Adesh, citing a source embedded inside Russia's Dnipro group of forces, Russian troops holding the river islands in occupied Kherson have almost no fast boats left. Most were destroyed by drone strikes, and command has not sent replacements. This claim has not been independently verified, but it fits a broader pattern already reported in past months. Without boats, ammunition cannot reach the islands, and wounded soldiers cannot be evacuated. What jamming equipment remains is reportedly outdated and largely ineffective against newer Ukrainian drones. Atesh describes the result as a near blockade. Supplies not arriving, casualties stuck in place, command unable to secure or supply the sector. There is a practical reason this is hard to fix quickly. A boat capable of operating on the Dnipro needs to be at least 5 or 6 meters long, generally a rigid hull design rather than a simple inflatable. That means transport by trailer or truck, and that transport route now runs directly through the same southern front zone Ukraine has been targeting with its deep strike logistics campaign. If the claim holds up, it cuts 2 ways. It reduces the threat Russian units on the islands pose to Ukrainian positions on the western bank. But it may also open room for Ukrainian forces to gradually take control of islands Russia can no longer contest. Now, to the ground war and 3 separate movements worth tracking. Near Kharkiv, geolocated footage shows Russian infiltration into Kutsakopany, later contested by Ukrainian forces. How far that contest went is unclear, but the area is now active front. A similar infiltration was spotted further north near Veliki Burluk, close to Shevchenkove. Neither indicates Russia has consolidated control. Both indicate continued probing along that stretch of the border. Further south, near Sloviansk, Ukrainian forces are fighting a Russian position south of Tonivka. Measured on the map, that position sits just 9.6 kilometers from the outskirts of Kramatorsk. That distance does not mean Russian forces control the ground in between. It means the front keeps creeping closer to a fortified belt that has anchored Ukraine's defense in this region for years. Ukrainian analyst Kostiantin Mashovets separately confirmed further Russian advances inside Kostiantynivka itself, a development this channel has flagged as increasingly likely for weeks, since holding the town has looked less viable each month. Southwest of there, near Pokrovsk, The Russian analyst known as Rybar describes a more mixed picture. Ukrainian counterattacks reportedly recovered control of Ivanivka and pushed Russian units back in parts of Novopavlivka, though whether Russia still holds the southern outskirts remains unclear. Rybar's own account calls the front configuration there fog of war territory. Not a stable line for either side, but a wide gray zone where premature claims of success routinely collide with the reality of open terrain, drones, and the difficulty of actually holding what's been entered. He notes rocket units shelling forests near Novosibirsk, suggesting no Russian troops are actually positioned there despite claims otherwise, and flags the appearance of a Ukrainian flag-raising group in Novosibirsk as evidence the situation is deteriorating in that sector, without necessarily meaning permanent control. Compare that to Russia's own pro-Russian mapping, and the two pictures genuinely disagree. Russian sources claim considerably more controlled territory and a much smaller contested zone. But even by their own account, they admit being pushed back in this specific area. Rybar's conclusion: recoverable for now, not yet collapsed, but a local crisis that gets harder to reverse the longer Ukraine keeps moving small groups through gaps in the line. One more thread from Crimea. Ukraine reportedly struck an airfield there. Visible fire doesn't confirm destroyed equipment, since fires have previously turned out to be nothing more than a burning field nearby. But footage from a separate operation on the Kinburn Spit shows something new: a sea drone delivering a ground drone onto the shore. Nobody is claiming this makes a full liberation of Crimea realistic with current tools. But it demonstrates that small amphibious landings are now practically possible almost anywhere along that coastline. Landings that can strike high-value targets, disrupt logistics, or support a larger operation with soldiers if one comes. So here's where the assessment turns genuinely interesting, because it isn't coming from Kiev. The Russian military bloggers known as Dva Mayora describe the front as advancing slowly, specifically because Ukraine has shifted to defense and Russia has fallen behind the pace of that shift. Their own account claims Ukraine's forward defensive line in built-up areas is sometimes held by as few as 18 soldiers, whose job is mainly to install drones and relay stations, operated remotely from further back, resupplied by heavy-lift drones rather than trucks, something Russia cannot replicate without its own equivalent to Starlink. Their conclusion: Russia is currently trading small pieces of territory to wear Ukrainian units down in offensive fighting, while Ukraine still retains the ability to organize local counterattacks, even with armored vehicles. Maxim Kalashnikov went further, describing a proposal for a Russian buffer zone as pointless on its face. Ukraine's Strike Command now covers drones reaching up to 3,000 kilometers, meaning a real buffer would have to cover the entire country, and Russia lacks the resources to evacuate and resettle the millions of people that would require. His read is a two-sided trap either way. Force Russia into full reservist mobilization, which accelerates economic collapse, or force it to seize private bank deposits to pay for the war, which risks social unrest instead. Either path benefits Kyiv. That's not propaganda from Ukraine. That's how two of Russia's most followed military analysts described their own military's position this week. The boats aren't coming, the ships keep burning, and the front keeps sliding, one small gray zone at a time.